Welcome back, everybody. This episode of the Open Concept Podcast, where we are breaking down those unnecessary walls and barriers that stand in the way of greatness. My goodness, it's an honor today because I go out of my way to make sure that we're bringing some really unique guests to the show every single week. And for me, this is a unique opportunity because truly, this podcast may not actually exist if it wasn't for this man right here. And I've told this story on the podcast a couple of times about how when I knew I wanted to start a podcast, right? I didn't know how I was going to do it. I knew like I needed some equipment. I kind of needed to get started. I bought a few things. It sat under my desk for over a month, just taunting me. And I didn't like all the things, right? I didn't know like where to plug the wires, didn't know where those were going to go. I didn't know what platform I was going to start recording on. I didn't know how to get it from the microphone to the internet, like all of these things. And then it dawned on me. It was like, I don't necessarily need to know how to do that, but I need to be able to find somebody that could, one, understand how to do it, knows how to do it, and two, be willing to come and sit down with me for a half hour or an hour and walk me through that process. Like just get in there with the weeds with me. And the man that is on the other side of the microphone and camera today was that man, Mike Freedman. Welcome to the show, brother.
It is, having watched you go from, hey, I think I might do something, to how many hundreds of episodes you've done, it's absolutely thrilling to be here. It's absolutely thrilling to be here to support you, and I love what you're doing for our industry and the voice you're providing, but also it's really exciting for me because this is kind of full circle. We've of course, I'm involved in a different podcast, and that's to give a voice to builders who traditionally are not able to speak for themselves as well as we can speak for them. What's beautiful to see is you, sir, have flipped the script. You're a builder giving a voice to other builders. And I think that's very important, what you're doing, not only for the industry, but also for those homeowners out there who don't know what to do and need a sense of guidance and direction. So thank you for having me here. It's nothing short of a thrill to be here today.
Honor is all mine, my friend. Mike, some things that people wouldn't necessarily know about you. Obviously, if they're listening here, they've heard your voice. Like, you have a beautiful booming voice. You're the host of the Measure Twice, Cut Once podcast, which is the Home Builders Association Vancouver's podcast, which highlights so many other builders, what's going on in the industry. And you're doing a fantastic job really taking that voice and making great use out of it. I love the podcast. I love what you're doing with it. That is awesome. But some things that people wouldn't necessarily know about you unless they got to know you is, when it used to be and what you can't see because he's sitting down right now, is like Mike is a big dude, right? Mike is tall. Mike is strong. He's like, he towers over you. If you look at this guy, you're either thinking security guard or, backstage WWE wrestler or coach, like somebody's in the corner. But when, like, you have a presence, man, and you in fact were a celebrity bodyguard of some sort prior to getting into this industry that you're in right now. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I spent about 20 years working for some really amazing audio brands. And, as part of the team at Beats when they rolled out products. So I got to work with people like Dr. Dre. And what ended up happening was, well, one, I got to spend a lot of time with these people. Now, let's go back a few more years. Picture like 16-year-old Mike listening to radio in southwestern Ontario in a small town of 3,500. That music was my escape hatch, and that's how I got to experience the entire world. Now we're going to fast forward a few years, and that guy's now in his 30s or his 40s, as it were, and he's literally standing shoulder to shoulder with a lot of these same people. and working with them. So for me, I was very, very privileged to turn what I loved into a career. As a result of working with a lot of these people, what ends up happening is they go from, oh my God, that's a celebrity, to there is so-and-so. And they put their bets on one leg at a time like the rest of us. But when you get to spend time with them, they certainly share a lot of insight with you. So that's how it ended up for me, was that I, being 6'5", we would do big shows like CES. So in that time I was working for Monster Cable, we'd have all these big celebrities like, Lady Gaga, Shaquille O'Neal, like you name it, Joe Perry. Everybody came to the booth. And my job, along with a couple other big lads, was to make sure that nobody messed with our guests. And so that's how I started getting into the private security and bodyguard era, and just getting to spend time with these people. And, I'm well past the point of being starstruck, but once in a while you turn around and you look over your shoulder at somebody and you're like, you're one of the reasons I do what I do. And that's when you take that pause, that deep breath, and you realize how fortunate you are. Of all the things you could be doing in this world, you're literally in the same space as one of your heroes. That is super cool. That is super fun. And that's something I'll never forget.
When was the last time you were starstruck by somebody who stood out to you that was just like, oh, okay, this is pretty cool?
Boy, that's a tough one. Boy, it's been a while.
Like you mentioned Dre, right? Like he's the doctor, right?
Yeah. I
mean, talk about Dr. Dre here, who growing up in the time when I grew up, it was like, man, this man is producing some amazing stuff. And obviously he's, not only an artist, a producer, but now he's in fact a very smart businessman. He played a part in delivering the number one set of headphones that were created and labeled by, Dr. Dre. And yeah, so like you name him. And I'm just curious, like for most people, they walk in, if they know who Dr. Dre is, like, all right, this is pretty cool. You're telling me, dude, this guy, he's just a guy. He's a guy.
Okay, so when we spend time with these people, what you realize is there's two different types. There's the ones who are like, their handles are like, don't make eye contact with Mr. So-and-so. And I immediately make eye contact and start talking to them because whatever, it's just what we do for a living, right? You build amazing houses, we design automation, they make music. It's all what we do for a living, and we all need each other. And then there are the people who are super chill, super cool, super easy to deal with. He is the latter. So there's no pretense or ego. He's an incredibly intelligent, very well-spoken man. And something he said to me years ago really shifted how I look at what I do. I asked him why he made beats. And probably I shouldn't have done that because I was just, you're not supposed to bug these people too much. And I said, hey, could I ask, he basically invented a genre of music, certainly popularized it. You're a successful producer. You've done all these amazing things. I can't think you need the money. Why are we doing this? And what he said, we'll never forget, and we'll never be able to go back. He said, we'll spend days, weeks, sometimes months in the studio getting it to sound a certain way, and you assholes buy cheap headphones and miss most of it. He wasn't caring about how much money he made. I mean, the fact he made a few bucks, great. He cared that we heard music. And I'm going to talk about a term that I talk about a lot called true to original artist intent. So if you've ever been inside a recording studio, the musicians are spread out in the area doing their thing, and there's a mixing board with 2 studio monitors, and they're pointed at you, and that's where the music is rendered. We increase this level, we decrease that level, we mix, we crossfade, and all of that. So that is the first most important position in the music industry. And the second is if you're watching live music, if you ever go to a concert, you can see where the mixing booth is on the floor. That's where you want to buy the seats. That's the best possible sound. So for me, whether we're listening to a set of headphones, a set of speakers on the ceiling, a dedicated musical room with some sound sculptures, doesn't really matter. What we want is, regardless of budget level, for that to sound as true and accurate as possible to what the artist originally intended. And that's something he taught me that literally shifted my entire career. And you look back at it now, I thought I was going to be dealing with people like that forever. I wish I'd asked a couple more questions when I had the chance, because, if I call him now, he may not return the call. In fact, I guarantee he won't. So when you are privileged enough to be around people like that who shape our popular culture and our music, and you think about what Beats did for the headphone industry, right? Everything. It's no different than asking, I wish I could have had 10 minutes with Nelson Mandela. right? I wish I could have had, 10 minutes with this person or that person, or it doesn't really matter, right? The point is some of these things, these conversations are just moments in time. I'm grateful for them. I wish we had more of them. Because that to me is the essence of what we all do. All right? Very few of us are famous recordings artists. Very few of us are going to be on stage doing our thing. But all of us will be touched in one way or another if those people are good at what they do.
There's taking understanding that when you're in certain circumstances, realizing having the self-awareness to realize that you are in an opportunity right now. And I believe that there's opportunity every single day in every single situation. And I don't know who made it. I don't know who popularized the quote. I know Mel Robbins has said it. I know other people have quoted it. But in between a situation that happens and action, like there is, or in thought, there is an action, right? That can be taken. And to have the self-awareness that you are in an opportunity where there is a stimulant, there is a thought, and there is an action that needs to be taken. Being able to capitalize in those moments, recognizing first that there is an opportunity to do something, and being able to take advantage of that moment, because that opportunity may be fleeting. That window might close. That door might not ever open again. And in that moment, being able to take advantage of that opportunity to step up, to do the thing, even though it might be kind of scary, even though like having that conversation with that artist or doing the thing might not feel comfortable. When that opportunity is gone, it's probably never going to come back again. I encourage you to ask those questions. I encourage you to take those leaps of faith and trust that on the other side of that, there's going to be some cool shit.
Life is a series of moments. And
real quick before we get back to the show, if you have heard anything on this podcast that has resonated with you, or if it's helped you in any way, appreciate more than anything in the world if you could go hit that subscribe button or leave us a review. It helps us tremendously. I want to go back to being able to continue to serve and do more and more and help out and get bigger and bigger guests on, better and better. The only way that I can do that is with your help. I'm so honored to be here. Let's get back to the show. Appreciate you. Have a wonderful day.
Life can also be a series of regrets if we don't capitalize on those moments. How many people would not be with the person they're with if they hadn't seen that person across the room and gone and start a conversation? And that's that once in a moment lifetime. There have been moments with certain celebrities that, I shouldn't have been able to have that much FaceTime with Gene Simmons, but through a series of circumstances, I did. And every time my kids tell me I'm a dork, I remind them that Gene Simmons specifically said I was cool. And that alone made it a really cool interaction.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty
cool. And I mean, for that one was personal because I went to University of Windsor, Ontario. So, of course, there's a little rule in Detroit radio. If you turn on a Detroit radio station, any station, and you flip around between the stations, you will guaranteed hear some Bob Seger. You'll guarantee hear some Kiss. You'll hear a little Iggy Pop. And if it's a newer station, you'll definitely hear some Kid Rock because Detroit, Rock City, right? So for me, I mean, I remember in 1995 when Kiss got back together at Detroit at Tiger Stadium. That was like they got the makeup on everything. So, you meet people like that. I'm not going to say I'm starstruck, but it was certainly something that was deeply meaningful for me. Whereas there's other people I've met and spent time with where it's like, yeah, okay, you do that. I do this. We do it together. And then we go on our separate ways. It's just the way it is, right? So I think that's one of the pieces of wisdom I took from all this, because when I got into my industry, I was much younger than everybody else. And I had all these older guys. I thought they were old at the time. They're my age now. But they had said, dude, this isn't like, stuff like this doesn't happen every day. Enjoy it. And I'm very grateful they took the time to say those things, because you take even a cool job you take for granted until you don't do it anymore. And then, don't get me wrong, I'm perfectly thrilled being able to spend my time with people like yourself as opposed to people like Dr. Dre. There's a more high likelihood we'll socialize outside of work with you than I will with Dr. Dre. But that being said, it doesn't matter who we work with. We just want to treat everybody the same and just enjoy our time with everybody, regardless of their level of celebrity as well.
And we're both equally as cool. I think myself and Dre.
Absolutely.
He's a little more well known than I am.
But you don't pretend to be a doctor. A lot of people don't know this. He's not actually a doctor.
Well, he's not actually a doctor. No. Fair enough. But speaking of Detroit, right? He produced or managed Eminem, right? Found Eminem. Also Detroit. Bruce Springsteen, I think was Springsteen Detroit?
No, Bruce Springsteen was New Jersey through and
New
through.
Jersey, that's right. Yeah, he's down in Jersey there. Anyways, I digress. My back to my original thought, right? In between stimulation and response is choice. And having that choice to ask those questions was powerful. So I only hope you get the opportunity to ask more questions, more opportunities like that come into your life, brother.
Well, it's funny because people like that do come into our lives periodically because we end up working for folks like that. And at the end of the day, I mean, the exciting part for me is not like I said, what people do for a living. It's the person they are. It's how they interpret the world. And I've had conversations with people who do what we would consider menial tasks that were equally as inspiring and empowering to me as when I met famous people as well. So I think it's just putting ourselves in a position to listen to what people have to say. The world is full of unique and interesting people. Very few of us take a couple minutes to just quiet our heads and listen to what other people have to say. And that really is one of the great joys in my life, is when we meet people and have conversations and connect. Doesn't matter what they do for a living.
The other thing I want people to take from that story is he's created music and it's so powerful. It's so meaningful to him. And he hasn't created yet or feels like it's not fully experienced by the people that are meant to listen to it. So
Yeah.
it doesn't matter what your business is, right? If you're passionate about what you do, you believe you have an excellent product, an excellent service, the back end, the office, like you're designing this amazing experience for your customers, and you have that. And on the back end of that, there isn't an opportunity for them to necessarily see that clearly. There's an opportunity there to create. There's an opportunity there to make sure that they, without a doubt, feel the impact of what it is you've set out to do on a daily basis, on a yearly basis, on a career basis.
Absolutely. We all have the ability. Every day we wake up the same way, with an unlimited amount of blank canvas in front of us. 24 hours, in fact. And there's a series of decisions we can make every day. Do we call it in and do what we always do, or do we step outside of our place of comfort and do something really spectacular? Every single day. Every single day we have that opportunity. And I think it's a very special segment of the population who recognizes that. I think a lot of people get stuck in their comfortable ruts, unfortunately. They go to their job every day at the same time. They take the same route home. Tuesday night's meatloaf night, and we watch this show. And if it works, it works. But I think there's a bigger picture out there that we're missing. And, what we're talking about right now is part of that bigger picture and has to do with expanding who we are by growing the people we talk to and learning from them on a daily basis.
Most people never, how do I put this? Most people will never realize fully their dream. Nobody will fully realize, or not a lot of people will ever fully be blessed enough to understand their purpose. And people will go, like, if you're going through a tough time, and you know that on the other side of going through this tough time, whether it's going to be health issues, whether it's going to be work related issues, whether it's going to be really difficult conversations that you need to have, or difficult choices that you're going to have to make in your life. If you don't realize that, if you're not pulled forward by this bigger purpose, and that isn't going to be realized, then it's easy to say, what is this all for? Why am I willing to get up and do this? Like, it's just much easier to not have to deal with this if I'm not confident that on the other side of doing this thing that's difficult lives this totally other aspect of my life, aspect of this version of myself that I never knew. Me, Mike, I want to meet that person. I want to meet that.
I do too, because this is the sad part about the world we live in. There are a lot of men and women who are very unfulfilled. Most of us die in our 40s. We may not be buried for another 30 or something years, but most of us get to a certain point where, like, we figured it out and we stop growing. That's really limiting because, one, I'm in my 50s and I'm still reinventing myself. I'm in my third trimester now. This is my third career. And you think about how many other people my age are like, this is it. This is what I do. And if you talk to those same people, what were your dreams at 20 versus what do you do right now? It's very rarely the same thing. I feel sad for those people. Most people have these amazing dreams when we're younger. Sometimes life happens. you lose a parent, or, something happens with your family, or, your farm fail, whatever. But a lot of people just stop. They stop trying after a certain point because it's easier to accept than it is to fail. Who knows why? But I gotta tell you, I don't know when I'm gonna die. But I know that I will have very few regrets when I do, because I've always understood one thing. Eventually I'm gonna die. And the amount of time I have to be alive is far less than the amount of time I'm going to have to be dead. And it's going to go by really quickly, so go for it. Enjoy it and live all of those lives if you can. Which, sorry, but, statistically, I've got less than 30 years left. So I'm almost 2/3 of the way through my life, and I've got so much left to do. Better get on it. Why wait till your 70s or 80s to realize you have regrets and go, shoot, what's the point? I get it. There are some people who give up on their dreams to take care of their families. They're called parents, and they're amazing, and they deserve it. They deserve the recognition, they deserve all that stuff, but they should also deserve a chance to go after their dreams once they've done their job and put their kids in a position where they can follow their dreams.
The parenting thing is interesting. And I have this conversation with people all the time. And parents, I'm a parent myself. You're a parent. It's challenging because I don't think that these opportunities should be lost, right? I think that a lot of people go through this selfless, or what they believe to be this selfless, I'm going to give up my dream scenario for my kids and my family thought. And I think everybody that has a parent at some point thinks that, because having children is a beautiful thing. Family becomes important, and you want to do everything that you can to. I think most people, they want to be good parents, right? They don't want to give up their dream. They don't want to give up what it is that they've been shooting after, but they do. And they say, you know what? I don't have the time because I have kids, I have a husband, I have a wife, I have a family, and their priorities trump whatever it is that I want to do. So I'm never going to go and accomplish that. And I often will ask people to consider the idea of, if our kids, our children, if the way that they learn is through watching their parents, if the way that they learn the most is not the way that I learned, which was sitting in front of a teacher in a textbook and reading and reciting and spitting out a bunch of garbage that's never really going to serve me. I don't learn that way. I learn by watching. I learn by replicating. I learn by proximity of having great people in my life that I look up to. And if you are a parent and you have kids, you have a couple of choices. One, you can send them away and have somebody else raise those kids for you. But know that when they're at home, they are learning from you. You are teaching them everything that you are learning. You are teaching them everything that they're probably inherently going to grow up to either love about their upbringing or hate about their upbringing. And by not doing both, by not shooting for your dreams and not shooting for the highest potential that you have as a human being, you are telling them through osmosis, you are telling them through watching you that it's okay not to go for your dream. And it's okay to give up on that. And I just want people to understand you can do both. You can raise kids, you can raise a family, you can have a purpose, a bigger purpose that's outside of your family, and they can come along for the ride. They can be involved in that, they can be integrated into it. But they don't want to ever end up at the end of your life thinking, this man, this woman had so much more opportunity and they gave it up because of me. You know how much guilt weigh on them?
My mom was set to go to medical school and she decided to become our mom instead and raised 4 kids. I think about that sacrifice. This is a very smart woman. And I think about why she did that. And I'm grateful for it, because a lot of, me and my 3 sisters are all very successful because we had 2 very hardworking parents who modeled certain values. So to your point I don't ever want my kids to think I gave up on my dreams, because that sends the message it's okay to settle. And it's not okay to settle. We got one shot at life, at least in this version. And I would hate to think we settled because it was easier than doing the hard stuff. But the other part about that is, as parents, we have to model what we expect for our kids. I'll give you a great example. My daughter, how I treat my wife, is modeling how she can expect to be treated by someone later on in her life. So it's really important I get it right. Just like when my kids see me working hard every day, they understand this business didn't just start where it is now. We're here now, but we weren't. And there were a lot of years where I was like, I don't even know what I'm doing. Why am I doing this? But my kids saw me at my desk every morning till the end of the day. Consistency. And, the flip side of that is we can accommodate our children and our dreams at the same time. I'm going to speak about, my experience. So, I spent 11 years with Sonos, and that was easily one of the great joys of my life. And the reason I left was, quite honestly, I was gone so much that I wasn't being the type of parent my kids deserve. Now, I could have walked away from that life and said, that's it, I gave up on my dream, I'll get a job, I'll do this, whatever. The flip side of that is I was able to take that same dream. Okay, it didn't look the same, but we were able to flip it 90 degrees and keep doing what I'm doing, just doing it differently. So there's room for compromise. Even if you have to make a sacrifice for your kids, there is always room for compromise, and there are 24 hours in a day. You should be able to figure out how to carve 1 hour a day for your dreams as well. Whether it's writing a book that takes you 10 years to write, or, starting a business, or anything. Maybe you've always wanted to learn a musical instrument. Well, you got an hour at night. Plug in some headphones, pick up the guitar, flip on YouTube, and learn. Whatever it is you want to do, you can do that. You have the time. Your kids eventually go to bed. Mine are teenagers, they don't. But whatever, we just do our thing, right? So this is the point. You may have to shift your dreams around a little bit. They may take a different form, but they can still exist, and they can comfortably coexist with reality.
I coach trades and home service businesses, and one of the big pushbacks that I get when our clients they come to us because they've been stuck at certain revenue targets, and they've just like, I don't understand, I don't have the time to really build the business. I'm very, very busy doing what I'm doing. I want to grow. I know that I can't keep doing this, but I don't know how to find this time to carve it out, to hire it out, to delegate. I don't feel confident that I can make that happen, but I feel the sense of urgency. I know that it needs to happen. So help me. What do I do? And I had one client, and he wrote me. He was just like, I am overwhelmed. There's so much that I need to do. There's so much on my plate. Like, I know I need processes and procedures for this thing and that thing and this thing and right now. And I'm like, man, just breathe for a second, right? What needs to happen right now is one small action that moves in the right direction. One small thing that can get done today that wasn't done yesterday. One small kick of the can further down the road. And it doesn't have to be, if you're writing a book, right? It doesn't need to be, you need to sit down and write 3,000 words every single day. 2,500 words every single day, 100 words every single day. It can be a sentence. It can be a thought. It can be a chapter, but you don't have to sit down and write that whole book in one day. You don't have to sit down and design your entire business in one day, because that will change. And the challenge is if there's a huge amount of overwhelm and there's all these things that you need to do, all these things that you need to accomplish right now, the human brain will look at that as overwhelm. And it will shut down, and you will default to what it is that you are regularly driven habitually to do, right? You fall to the level of your habits. And if you don't have great habits, the habit of accomplishing one more thing, one more task, one sentence, getting it right, being happy with the progress that you're making, reflecting on that, reflecting on the ability to look back at where you were yesterday to where you are today, and recognizing that you have made some degree of progress, then you're never going to get it done, because the brain will just default to turning off and thinking there's too much to do. So why bother?
It's a series of small steps. And I learned this from a friend and a former colleague at Sonos, Dave Wood. I was struggling with something. He goes, Mike, how do you eat an elephant? I was like, what the hell are you talking about? I like barbecue. I thought that was the illusions, right? How long do you smoke an elephant for? Turns out what he was getting at is, he said, stop, you're overthinking it. You eat an elephant one bite at a time. And I think that's what we forget in business, right? So as a business owner, I want to get to level 11 today. Well, first I got to get to level 1, level 2, and level 3. And as often the case in everything else in life, if we skip a step, we miss important things. We may not have what we need later. So I think living in the moment and breathing and saying, okay, there's today, there's this week, there's this month, there's this year, this decade, and we break things out in those smart and manageable increments and recognize that, especially those of us who have a business, there's only one of us. We have to, every day, every morning, we should be writing down all our priorities for the day, ranking them and getting to the most important ones, and understanding that we can't do everything all at once simultaneously. And it's a process. And that's why it's so important people like yourself out there are coaching business owners. Because I know a ton of great home builders who are master craftsmen, exquisitely well trained in building science and the art of it and everything else. Just like I know a lot of integrators who can make stuff work together like you wouldn't believe. I know plumbers, I know electricians. That doesn't mean that in the course of learning to be the best at what they do, someone sat down and said, here are some basic tips on business acumen and how to run a business. So, yeah, I agree. It's a series of steps and a process, but also, hey, I don't know what time this is going to air, but last night I watched Carolina win the Stanley Cup. They didn't just win because they went on the ice and did whatever the hell they wanted. They won because they had a passionate coach who believed in them and wanted it for them. Didn't just take their money and run like some coaches do. I know you don't do that, but yeah, that can happen. And then empower them with the skills needed that they learned along the way to enable success. Well, what you do is exactly the same way. You've been doing this a long time. You've invested heavily in learning how to manage the process, not just how to build a house, but how to manage the process. And I think it's phenomenal, and it's a credit to you that you do stuff like this to help everybody else out. Because human nature is, I got me, I got mine, I'm going to do okay, the hell with everybody else, they're my competition anyway. A special type of person looks outward and goes, hey, if they're all doing better, that means I'm doing better too. And if we as an industry do better, we all do better. That is the way we should all be thinking about it. Unfortunately, very few people actually think about that, which is why I'm here and not there. Literally.
When I've told this story as well on the podcast. First year in business, right? I started my business the same way that most people do. You're good at something, you think you can do it better. You're in a job that maybe doesn't align with what you're doing. You have a craft, you have a certain skill set that you can offer the world, and you believe that you can make more money and you'll have more time if you go and decide to do this thing on yourself or on your own. I started that exact same way. First year of business, I mean, that was tough. Like I've told the story of me going into Quiznos. I'm with my business partner going into Quiznos, and the sandwich runs through the oven, and I go to pay and I get denied because I don't have the $9 in my account. I didn't have a credit card at the time because I was told that credit cards were bad. That was what I grew up believing. And so I had a debit card, and that was it. Whatever money was in the bank was whatever money I could play with. I didn't have enough money for lunch. And I turned to my business partner and I said, like, this is never going to happen again. And can I also borrow $9 because I'm hungry and like we got to get back to work and everything. So but that was a moment that I will never forget. And it was at that moment where I realized very clearly, like, I don't know anything about business. I don't know anything about what I'm doing. I'm really good at what I'm doing, where we can deliver. Like, I understand some fundamentals of doing a good job, delivering a product, keeping your word, like these kind of fundamental core values, customer service, making sure that your customers are happy. That's cool. Like that's all very basic stuff. But understanding how to charge for deposits, understanding cash flow, understanding how to set up a corporation, understanding, how to read a P&L sheet, understanding how to delegate, what that looks like, how to hire people properly, how to interview with people properly. Nobody ever taught me this. And that was when I started seeking out my own coaching, figure this out, because back to how I opened this podcast, I didn't necessarily need to know how to do the thing. I needed to know somebody that knew how to do the thing that was willing to sit down and teach me. whether that is through a mentorship, which I encourage everybody to do. If you don't have a mentor of some sort and you don't have the opportunity to pay a coach that has done the thing that you want to do, start with a mentor. Go and find somebody that is willing to sit down with you, ideally on a bit of a regular basis, and just be able to ask some questions. And I guarantee you, if you find somebody that has a level of success that you believe you may not ever be able to achieve at this point, they will probably sit down and have a moment to chat with you. You need to be able to figure that out, but you will find somebody that will be willing to do that because they were in a similar situation, likely at one point. When I first started out in business, that was one of the first things that I had done. It was, I think, after our first year in business, but I went around to local builders that I looked up to at the time and local business owners that I thought were doing great things. I just wanted to take them over lunch and just shot them a message, said, "Hey, do you mind sitting down? I'm Brandon. I'm kind of the new kid in town. I really have no idea what I'm doing. I've been idolizing you guys for a while. I look up to you. Would you have a minute for me?" And the response rate was almost 100% yes. People were willing to sit down with me and have those conversations with me, which was incredible. And I do a hell of a lot of that now. Right. One of the biggest things for me, I'm very blessed and, to have the opportunity to speak in front of a lot of high schools. And I go back to, and I'm talking with like 15, 16, 17-year-old kids that are grade 11, 12. And I've been there, man. I've been there in their seats, struggling. I've been there seeing my parents going through a divorce. I've seen their, this understanding of like this, what the hell is money? Why is this like thing in my head just overarching this idea that money is not for me, it's for somebody else, but it's definitely not for me. Like that's just not in the cards. What does opportunity look like? Have a learning disability that was casted on me or I was told I had a learning disability by teachers, by counselors, by parents, by friends, my friends' parents. They just thought of me as this kid. And I had this opportunity to speak with them to make sure that hopefully I can play a small part in making sure that they never go through that, or at least they know that if somebody like myself can go through that and get to the other side, there's hope for them and they can do that. And know that everything that you learn in high school is probably bullshit anyways. Like make some friends, have some fun, but like you are going to start finding yourself after high school when you start figuring out your tribe, who those people are. Figuring out what actually makes sense when you start questioning, when you start getting out of these confines of pressure from external circumstances, external people that you are told to look up to. You're told to respect your parents. You're told that your teachers are authority. You're told that police officers and counselors, like these are the people that you need to look up to and you need to listen to. So when they tell you there's a problem with you, there is a problem with you. And the thought very rarely crosses your mind because you're not developed at that point. Your brain is not developed. Your heart is not developed. You don't have enough life experience to start thinking that maybe there's something different for me. Maybe this story that's being told on me, maybe this pressure that's being put on me is all just made up because I haven't found something that I'm going to excel at yet. I've never seen that path because nobody's ever showed it to me.
Well, taking the blinders off. Right? We take the blinders off our horses. They can see in peripheral vision now. It's no different than our kids. My son is 17. He graduated 2 weeks ago. Sorry.
Congratulations.
Thank you. We didn't know. And it's not because like I have ADHD and my sons struggle in school a lot too for the same reasons. Smart boys, they just don't learn the same way as everyone else has learned. So what's really exciting for me is he's taking a gap year. He's actually working for another builder in your community for the year, which is great. I was raised in a time where it's like you go to university to get a good job. You go to college if you go into the trades. Like somehow the trades were bad. And I'm looking at the next 10 years going, okay, AI is probably going to take my job. It's probably going to take a lot of designers and architects' jobs. It's not taking your job, which means it won't take his job. Even lawyers, it used to be you'd have to go through articling for a year. Now I can open up ChatGPT and pull up all the case law I want. So even some of the old school, blue label, high quality jobs that we were supposed to have in the old days, those have all shifted. And so now he's in the path of going, okay, I'm going to explore the trades and maybe getting my red seal. And I'm excited for him because, like you talked about, once you leave high school, there's this monumental outburst of awareness. Once you leave that same group of friends, even though you're friends, there's a bigger world outside of there. And growth never comes as a result of being comfortable. Well, I can tell you something about my son, and not just based on his attendance for the last month, which has been abysmal because he's almost done school now, but he's comfortable now. He can come and go as he wants. There's nothing left for him except to maybe learn a few facts, figures, speeds, and feeds to pass a test. He's about to start again. He's about to be in the working equivalent of grade 9. He's not framing walls. He's got a shovel that he's going to be getting to know intimately. Or he'll be go get this or cut that. But he's going to learn his trade by starting at the bottom and working his way up. And what's great for him is not only is he going to learn from a great company, but he's got people like my wife and I are going to help him. So she's great at what she does. I am in business, so I'll be able to help him with some business acumen. She'll be able to help him with the legal stuff, of course. But, he's got all these options that he can take this basic, I don't want to say basic, let me rephrase that. He can take a simple position that he gets to grow into, and he can backfill from different sources outside of that and create a really beautiful future for himself. So there's all these cool directions this guy's going to be able to go and all this growth. And I'm super, super thrilled for him. I'm super thrilled for what he's going to learn. I'm super thrilled for the opportunities to become the sort of person he wants to become. Because the other thing he's discovering at 17 and almost 18 is, okay, I could be tried as an adult. That doesn't necessarily mean I have all the skills to be a successful adult. So as a parent, I don't want to tell him what to do. I don't want to tell him what to think. I want to help him get in a good enough position that he can do and think what he wants, whatever those things are, but he can figure it out himself. That's the truth empowerment right there.
I was told, go to university, otherwise you're going to end up becoming a plumber. Right. That was always the big thing, right? Is like, you don't want to not go to university. You don't want to not become an academic of some sort. Otherwise, you're going to end up as a tradesperson. Now, that has totally flipped, and I am pushing as many people, and that's a huge part of the content that I put out, and a huge part of what I do is when I speak is encouraging people to explore the trades and make the trades their first choice. It shouldn't be their like C choice, D choice. Like, let's make it the A choice, because when you look, especially now, like you mentioned with AI, especially with the speed in which things are moving. If you get into a position, let's say an entry level, interior design position, and this is what you want to do, you're going to design school, and no hate on the designers but they're absolutely killing it. If you're a star at anything, you'll exceed anywhere. But the reality is that position that you're going to go to school for, that you're going to enter the job force in, you may not have enough runway before that gets completely taken over by AI to actually hone those skills that you need to develop that self-confidence, to develop that acumen, whether it's the business acumen, whether it's sharpening those skills, is because there may not actually be a need for it. It may not actually be around. Whereas if you're getting into the trades, that is a role that will be around for a long period of time. And at least, if you're looking at a 10-year horizon, I can't really predict what things are going to look like in 10 years at the speed in which things are moving right now. But I can predict that those heat pumps and furnaces that we're installing right now are going to sure as hell need to be serviced 10 years from now. And we're probably not going to have robotics going into somebody's houses to retrofit, for energy efficiency. And these are things that we are still going to need people to do. And these are great opportunities right now for people to look at this landing pad of opportunity for future development, for career development. And along the way, they should be learning about AI. They should be understanding how to use it. But if you become a tradesperson that is equipped and understand how to leverage and use AI, you are going to be unstoppable.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. First of all, my son is going to be part of that. Maybe we'll get one of those machines that 3D poops out a house in one day, but we're still going to need walls in the interior and everything else like that. And I'll say another thing. I went to university with a lot of folks. I have a degree in history, which I've never used. I have a lot of friends with degrees in sociology and criminology, many of whom which are putting bumpers on cars at the Chrysler factory now. So the idea that being in the trades is anything other than noble needs to stop. I have nothing but respect for doctors. They have a very important role in our society, but without the people building the hospital, they have no place to do their work. So the idea that going to the trades is somehow settling, what a ridiculous notion. If I'm looking at my kids going, okay, so I know in the next 10 years, maybe I retire, maybe I don't, but I probably won't be able to support them in the way they deserve. So that means that I only have a few years left to put them in help put them in a position, I can't do it for them. They have to want it, but to help steer them in the right position so that they can take care of themselves and they can raise a family. And I will share something with you. I have 3 younger sisters. They're amazing human beings. But at the end of this month, my littlest sister is 10 years younger than me, and her husband and her son are moving to Nova Scotia. Our family has a home there, and they're going to stay there for a couple years because they cannot afford to level up to a bigger house in Vancouver right now. And that's the really sad part, is that they are hardworking, they are wonderful human beings, but they're just going to have to go for a couple years to get enough to do that level up. Going back to what we were talking about, I want my kids to be in a position where they can go into a career where, one, they can sustain themselves anywhere they want around the world. Check. There isn't a single trade like we use plumbers in Dubai, we use plumbers in England, we use plumbers in North America, right? Same thing with maybe the code's changed, but those people can work everywhere. And second of all, the one thing about the trades is we pay our trades maybe not as much as they deserve, but they make a pretty good wage, all things considered. And I know that if my son becomes a Red Seal carpenter, he will have enough to live comfortably in the city. He doesn't have to decide between his career or starting a family. He doesn't have to decide, well, I can't start a family because I can only get a 1-bedroom place. I want him to be able to punch his own ticket to wherever he goes. I will help my kids in any way I can, but the best help I can give them is to empower them with the skills needed to take care of themselves later in life. So if I'm talking to other parents, right, and I come from a family of very intellectual people, all a bunch of university levels, like I'm the dumb one with just a BA, right? And, you hear some of them, not one in my family, but you hear people like, oh, I wouldn't want my kids going into the trades. I'm like, well, what do you want your kids going into? There's a lot of noble professions that don't pay enough. To me, one of the most important careers in our entire society is teacher. We pay our teachers criminally underrated amounts. They're taking care of our children. It's the most important asset we have. So it really bothers me when great teachers can't live in the community they teach in. When the paramedics who take care of us and save our lives and the nurses and doctors at those hospitals can't live in their own communities. That's a problem. I don't ever want my kids and anyone in my family to have that problem, which is why I want them to go in a career that is relevant, that is evergreen. It will shift, but what you do doesn't. And that will be able to give them the lifestyle that they deserve. And I'm sorry, we all deserve to do more than get by. We have to work for it. It doesn't just come magically, but we deserve to be in a position where if we have a good work ethic, we can thrive.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I love you talk about the construction building the hospitals, right? There's doctors are great, but without having a facility for them to work at, they don't actually have anywhere to go.
That's right.
So if they don't have an opportunity, an office, an operating room to go and actually get a job at, then all that schooling is for nothing. All of that hard work, all of that passion that they have, all of those lives that could be saved are not happening because we can't build infrastructure fast enough to get the help that they need. We have the Delta Hospital here near where we're recording right now. And I had Lisa brought her on the podcast, and she's the director of the Delta Hospital Foundation. And they were tasked with raising $18.5 million for this new addition in this hospital. And they were told that if they met this if they raised privately $18.5 million to build this hospital, that the provincial government, federal government actually, was going to allocate funds and cover the rest of the cost to actually build this wing of the hospital. They raised privately. They work their asses off. These are very, very hardworking people. I've been to their events. They raised $18.5 million. Met those requirements. And the government said, actually, we're going to take a beat. We're not going to actually fund the rest of this, probably for the next couple of years. So we're looking at this hospital that has started groundwork, preload is in, and is on hold indefinitely, even though they made good on what it was that they were going to be doing. And we have the Delta Hospital here has shut last year. I think it was actually this year, had shut down twice. Couldn't take people. They shut down for 24 hours. They couldn't take anybody into the emergency room because they're required to have on staff a certain number of technicians, a certain number of doctors that have certain skills to actually open the doors as by law. And they didn't have enough people to do that. So like we're walking a very thin line between not having a hospital and potentially being able to save a life that needs it.
Yeah, look, I mean, healthcare is one of those things we could talk about all day and probably not solve unless should we announce that we're running for Premier of BC and Mayor respectively or something? But I mean, unless we go into politics, there's very little chance of actually solving some of these problems. But we should talk about healthcare, and I can't speak for others. Like our friends down south don't look at healthcare the same way as we do, but we should in Canada all align on one of the pillars of our society here. That is to say that if you work hard, we pay higher taxes here. We do. We have good roads. We have good healthcare. We have reasonably good education. Is it as ideally perfect as everybody wants? No. We look at how much better we pay our teachers. We look at how much better equipped our schools are here. We're somewhere between where we want to be and somewhere between where we are is where we got to get to, right? End result, though, is that our healthcare, being one of the pillars of our civilization in Canada, is in crisis right now. I grew up with family. My parents were psychologists, right? My dad worked at a hospital. He left, went in private practice because they kept cutting back and cutting back and cutting back. And he didn't want to offer anything less than a high quality care. Our healthcare system was already teetering, and it took something like COVID where we really, really changed everything. I don't know if you ever had to go to the hospital during COVID, but you had like airlocks and Darth Vader masks that you had to wear and everything else. And it put an incredible strain not only on the infrastructure itself, but all those amazing people, our nurses who work too hard, our doctors who work a million hours. One of my siblings is a physician. She works a ton of hours, and there is not nearly enough of them to go around. So we're at this critical infrastructure where it's doing this. It's folding in on itself. And it's a really scary thing to think about because why is it doing that? Well, we have to invest more in our infrastructure facilities. So we need more people like you to build more additions to more hospitals. We need to create a path forward for more doctors to come to BC. We have to incentivize them because we also have to remember we don't pay our doctors enough here. Okay, we say, okay, they make $350 a year minimum. But by the time you take out all the hours they work, because they're not paid by the hour, and all the infrastructure, they're working for less than some of the trades. So why would I do that when I can make 4 times as much and keep it all by working in Texas? So we have to do more than just say, I want better healthcare here in Canada. We need to start creating some incentives. Just like we need to start creating incentives, we need more skilled trades. Well, they don't just grow on trees. We can wait 4 years for my son to finish his apprenticeship and there's one more. Or we can say, where else in the world do they have comparable skills, certify them and go, we're going to do the same for trades. We can do the same for medicine and we can fix a lot of problems at once. Then we have people to build the hospitals as well as people to staff.
It's not uncommon for somebody to migrate here from another country as a doctor, as a PhD, as an architect to end up driving for Uber Eats because their certifications aren't recognized here.
He's a builder in our organization. Won major awards. He was a doctor. His wife was a doctor, and they built houses when they came here because it was easier to become a builder than it was to go and redo and certify for medical school. That's brutal. Although we did solve one of our problems by shifting another, so I guess it was a lateral move because we need trades and builders as well as doctors. But still, I mean, why couldn't we have both?
And we can have both, but things need to change. Man, you talk to a lot on your podcast, Measure Twice, Cut Once. What do you see? What is a common thread that you see between builders that are coming on, tradespeople that are coming on that are successful at what they're doing versus who they're probably separated from?
Well, the highest level is passion. I'm really privileged to call a number of builders, yourself included, my friends. Over the last 8 or 9 years, I've got to know you and some other great people as human beings. Yeah, we do what we do, but at the end of the day, amazing human beings. And the thing I could say about all the people who I'm privileged to call my friends is that all of you have you have a number of characteristics. You care about people around you. You want the industry. You're thinking bigger picture. You're looking outward instead of inward. But the biggest thing that I think about is passion. I will ask you about a project in passing and you will light up like a Christmas tree. There are builders who are son of that. I would never play poker with them because they could just keep this stoic, virtuous, and then I'll ask them about some project. And all of a sudden, all that slips and you get to see the person underneath. Not what we're outwardly projecting. And in every case, the passion they have. It's not the money. Money's great. But it's the passion, the desire to create a space for people. Maybe it's the desire to solve a problem. Maybe it's the desire to create something timeless. And I've been riding around with builders and they'll drive past and goes, hey, that was one of my first projects from 20 years ago, like an expectant parent. As proud as they are as I am of my son who just finished high school, as I am of all of my kids. That passion is what separates the good from the great. And that higher level view that we're all part of something bigger than ourselves. I talk about a symbiotic relationship in the construction industry all the time. We know who's at the top of the food chain, it's you. But that doesn't mean you can do what you can do without us and we can do what we can do without you. But that, in how many tens of thousands of builders are in BC, we all have a choice too. We can choose to work with people who share our values and who share our passion, or we can choose to people and be transactional and go, okay, the money's good, I'll just do it and who cares. Sometimes you got to do both. But it's great working with people who are deeply passionate about what they do in any capacity, but especially in this capacity, because we're building homes here. We're building the place that people come home to. You, sir, are building where we wake up every morning, where our memories are, where our birthday parties with our kids are, where we say goodnight to our kids every night. You're building the place that our memories, our core indelible memories are going to be. Some of you take a great deal of personal responsibility for that, and I respect that a lot.
Appreciate that, man.
Well,
I don't know that I know what you're getting at, but when you talk top of the food chain, right, you're referring to if we're acting as a general contractor. And that means that if we aren't working, then we're not hiring all of the trades, right? Anytime we build a house, there's 25, 30 different companies on there. And if building isn't happening, if there's nobody directing the build, if there's nobody that's bringing on those trades, then they don't have work. So there's a tremendous amount of responsibility. The subcontractors that we work with, that continue to work with, that we have long outstanding relationships with, are the ones that are passionate about what they do, that are less worried about nickeling and diming. They're less worried about just nuances of the relationship. They are passionate. They're driven for what they do. They want to support the bigger cause. They are team players. They want to step up and do their part to make sure that the mission gets accomplished, so the home gets built, so that the customers are happy, so that we can move on to the next one and get it done and move on collectively together. They understand that very much is a symbiotic relationship. It is not a one-off conversation that we're going to be having with them. It is not a one-off project that we're going to be performing with them. This is even if this is your first project, this is the start of something that can be tremendously great. It's the start of a relationship that can be an excellent relationship, and for both parties, right? It can be a career-changing moment for that subcontractor. Now, part of that is their ability, for sure, to deliver a high-quality product, no doubt about it. But that back end, the coordination, right? If the communication drops off because you don't have the requirements to communicate properly, if you're dragging your feet because you're the guy that is outperforming the work, but you're also doing the quoting and you're also doing the project management and you're also doing the books at night, and you can't get everything out in time, and you're going to drop the ball somewhere. That plays a part in who we choose to work with, because we need not just good quality work, but we do need a high level of communication. We do need you to be able to stick to the price that you've given us, because we've passed that along to our clients. Right. And we can't, and if you are not able to be a part of the bigger team, and that's driven by passion, and ultimately that is like the top of our core value at our company. Love it.
I spend a lot of time volunteering my time at the Home Builders Association.
You do.
And there's a reason for it. I pay to be a member, same as everybody else. But I was at a crossroads in my life. When I left Sonos, I didn't know what I was going to do. And I worked with a company downtown called Hi-Fi Center. I love those guys, good friends of mine. They were my client for years. But the idea of sitting and doing speaker demos every day till I died, even at the amount that I was making, was killing me. And joining the Home Builders Association showed me a path forward and connected me to a group of people who are some really, really, really amazing people. Do you know who Michael Kamen is? He's the conductor for the San Francisco Philharmonic or Symphony Orchestra.
I didn't until now.
And he's a builder. Let me tell you why. Because he takes a bunch of individually talented musicians, waves his baton, and they make something beautiful together. Think about that. What else do you do, sir? You get a bunch of different trades together, you wave your baton, and you get everybody to make beautiful music together. I don't care what you do for a living. I don't care if you're a doctor. I don't care if you're a builder. I don't care if you're a lawyer. I don't care if you're in sales. It doesn't matter what you do. We as a society have to treat our job title the same. Professional communicator. And if you don't think of yourself as a professional communicator, you're not a professional. Period. That is what really separates people who are successful. You can be as passionate as you want. If you can't articulate, you're not doing anything. I have beautiful music in my head. Until I write it down, it's not a song. Right? I have all sorts of great ideas. Until I write it down, it's not a book. You might have a great set of plans, but until you have someone here to conduct the symphony, and that's you, my friend, you don't have a house. You got nothing. Got a bunch of people digging holes and banging on wood, but you're not building it together. That's the real big difference here. And that's what's so important about what it is that you do. Because one thing I've learned on my show is that the difference between success and failure is often just communication. The difference between an amazing experience and a bad experience is whether the builder goes, hey, this is what's happening, just so you know this week, versus you go to the job site on Friday and try to figure out what happened. Same results are at the end. It's just how everybody feels at the end. And believe me, for what I do, I'm often coming in at the end of the project. I'm going to hear about it if the client hasn't been communicated to. Last summer, we were at our place in Nova Scotia, and it's 4-hour time difference, so it was like 9:30 at night, and I'm out on the beach of the lake listening to a lady cry. She's telling me all the challenges she's facing. Now, I was able to help her because I was able to explain to her, like, look, the delay wasn't your builder's fault. See, municipality took 18 months to get out a permit when they said they could do it in 6 weeks. You're over budget not because your builder didn't do a good job managing your resources. You're over budget because the price of X, Y, or Z resources went up 50% between your design phase and your execution phase because of the long gap from the municipality. At the end, though, I've also talked to people who've gone through the exact same things who didn't call me crying because they were clearly communicated. It doesn't change what happened. You as a builder, if it's a 6-week delay, it's a 6-week delay. You don't change that by not telling me. You just make me upset because I'm trying to figure out why you're not showing up every day. That's the biggest difference. And I would say this to every builder. I went through a horrible renovation before I knew anything about this industry. Horrible execution, horrible communication, horrible planning. I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy. And do you know why it was so stressful? Okay, go get the tires changed for my truck. They don't get the right ones on. I can squawk about it. I can change them. It's my house. Everything I have is tied up in these walls. So not only is it the matter of that there's the inconvenience and everything else, but it's also a financial implication if we don't get it right. That's what people forget. the person's not mad about the delay. They're not yelling at you for the sake of yelling at you. They're probably upset because they have to wait 6 more weeks and it's $1,000 a day carrying cost. But isn't it better to give them some context as to why ahead of time than to wait till after the fact and they have to call me crying because nobody's telling them anything? Been there. I don't ever want anyone to go through that again. And that's what I would say to anyone. How do you hire your builder? You talk to them and see how well they answer questions. See how well they get back to you. See how responsive they are to you now before you've signed a contract, because that is a direct determination of how they're going to be after the contract's signed as well. And go with your gut.
This episode is sponsored by New Vision Projects, and everybody has heard the horror stories that happen. They have a friend of a friend or a neighbor that's been renovating for years on end, or they've been building a home and it just hasn't gone the way that it needed to go. Budgets are blown through the roof, timelines, forget about them. New Vision Projects has an incredibly strong track record for over 15 years of working with customers, serving them at the highest level. If you are considering building or renovating, check them out on Instagram at New Vision Projects or at newvisionprojects.com. Building the homes you want with the confidence you need. New Vision has you covered. Let them show you why they're different. Back to the show.
Great people in this industry. You just got to find them.
Mike, we have covered a lot of ground today, brother.
Yeah, I feel like we just started too. Now that we got the opening segment done, we can do the next 6 hours or what?
Yeah, who's gonna wait? We might have to break that into another podcast to keep going and keep those thoughts rolling. Man, you are a wealth of knowledge. You're around a lot of great people. You have a voice. I talk about communication that serves you and will continue to serve you really well. You articulate well. You're in front of a crowd. You can light them up. You seem to have an immense amount of confidence when you're public speaking, which is great. When you mentioned communication, I think communication, the art of communication, is something that is lost, is something that, especially in the wave of AI, trust will start to deplete. And the way that we inherently develop and capture trust is going to be through communication. And that is really why I started this podcast. It's because I wanted to hone in on my ability, my art to communicate, and share with others a platform that they could come on and begin to articulate and tell their stories. And the people that I have on the podcast are absolutely amazing people. They may not have the biggest following. They may not be as far along in their career. They may be on their third or fourth career, but they have a tremendous amount of knowledge, a tremendous amount of heart, and they are on a mission to share. And having the opportunity to sit with them and hear them communicate what's on their heart, because I've never had the ability to do that before, is an absolute honor. And to sit here with you on the other side of this microphone, brother, and just share the wealth of knowledge that you have acquired over the course of your career, and the fact that you're willing to sit down here and share it says a lot. I really appreciate it.
Where I am, because I've always had strong people in my corner teaching me. Remember, I was younger, and I joined the audio video industry. So my first CES, I went with the company I worked for at the time, and I literally was 20 years younger than everyone else in the room. And, I learned a lot from them in terms of what they taught me, but also other things along the way. I remember, half these guys were divorced and on fourth marriages and stuff, and they were talking about, you're so lucky. You have your kids, your family still together. You get to be with your kids. I'm like, I'm in Vegas sitting at a bar with you guys, though, at a show. I don't know that I am. And, those folks taught me so much in what they did or they didn't do, as well as sitting them down. And so I am here today because I had great people who invested in me, who mentored me. Arnie, Kevin. I can list these people forever. And I love these people like family, by the way. And there are going to be people years from now who are going to be where they are because of people like you who took a leadership role. This isn't for making money. You're busy. You've got 800 spinning plates. This is a lot. And I know how much, because I also know how much you are devoted to your family and to your community and type outside of here. And what I hope, and why I'm so thrilled to be able to do this, is hopefully someone listening or watching this learns a few things from us in the same way I learned from some of these veterans who I learned from as well. And the privilege that we have where we're at in life is we've accomplished a lot. We've learned a lot, and now we're in a position to not just use it for our own personal gain, but to flip the script and help a bunch of other people and further grow our community. So I would be completely remiss if I didn't thank you for being a leader in the construction industry and doing this. Not just this. I see your social media posts. You talked about being a kid with learning disabilities. They told me at 14 I was never going to go to university because I had a learning disability. You need to have more of these conversations so that person who's told what they could do and what they couldn't do based on what they were or they weren't doesn't believe what they were told and go, the hell with it, I'm going to go and do it anyway. That post you talked about when you were at McDonald's, dude, that hit me in the feels. I wish when I was 14 and struggling, well, there was no social media in those days. There was barely dial-up. But I wish someone had photocopied a quote like that and slipped it under my door. There are more people who need to hear that. There are more people who need to understand. Just because you are something doesn't mean you can't be something else at the same time. That is so crucial, and I'm so grateful for this opportunity, as well as the opportunity just to chat with you and catch up with you. Like, when have we not had a great conversation? Name one time.
They're always great conversations, man. And you know, a part of why I'm out there telling those types of stories is to give others the permission to tell their stories that feel like they may not have the permission to do that already themselves. Is if to find that permission within themselves to step into who it is that they need to become, who it is that they are becoming, and share that version of themselves with the world.
That's one of the hallmarks of leadership. We talk about confidence, right? Communication, but also vulnerability. That we are human beings. We are not perfect. We make mistakes. We do things. We don't know everything. And we're vulnerable enough to say it. That's really, really crucial as well. And teaching people to be good in business is important. Teaching people to be vulnerable in business, but also vulnerable in life. Vulnerable has a very bad connotation. It's not a bad thing at all. It means we're letting our guard down. That's where the biggest connections come from, typically.
We're letting people in.
Yeah. Not everybody. Not everyone has earned the right to be part of my inner circle, just like not everyone has earned the right to be part of your inner circle. There's that word, earned the right. I had a conversation about this. I was at a Haven new members event last week, and I was talking about building relationships in this industry. And they let me speak about this for as long as I want now. And to me, that's all it is being put in the position to build a relationship. And I think what a lot of people in this industry forget is that it is the relationship that carries everything else. I said, quick show of hands, who's married in the room? Everyone put their hands up. I said, keep your hands up if you got married on the first date or even the second date. I'll drop. I'm like, okay, so you just demonstrated the power of relationships right there. It usually takes 7 conversations to build a relationship. So these conversations are important that we're having because I may only be on here once or twice. But every time someone tunes in, they're hearing a conversation with you and they're getting to know you. And they will hopefully learn I know a lot about you, but there's a lot more to learn. And it's not, look at me, I'm so great. It's, this is what I learned as a result of struggling. That's really powerful right there.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah, brother. Mike, thank you so much for being here. If people want to connect with you, where can they find you? Where's the best place?
Instagram at AI Tech Design. We're there. LinkedIn. Of course, Haven's Measure Twice, Cut Once podcast. It's available on all the different platforms. Yeah, I mean, I'm at shows. I'm always around. The chances of you going to BuildX or IDS or even the home show and seeing another guy 6'5" with a ponytail are pretty slim. So if you see me, just tap me on the shoulder and say hi. I mean, I love meeting new people. I love connecting with new people. I love hearing new stories. And most of all, I love learning from other people's experiences. So I'm honored and thrilled to meet new people on a daily basis. That's one of the great joys of my life, along with appearing on this podcast with you, which has been phenomenal. Thank you.
Listeners out there, what is it that you needed to hear today? What is it that you felt like you didn't have the permission to do before that you now feel that you have the permission to do? If there's anything, I would love for you to comment in the show what that might be. And until next time, I'm here rooting for you to win. See you later. Peace. Stay blessed. Rock and roll.